All right. Good evening, everyone. This evening, we're going to have a discussion about the reason why Democrats are losing in black cities in America, especially with the federalization and militarization of the National Guard, and how President Trump has signed an executive order basically specializing federal National Guard troops and making them federal so you can have total autonomy and control of how they are being deployed. Now, what we're watching right now is just not another political skirmish, it's a seismic power shift when it comes to Republicans against the Democrats because Trump has turned the National Guard from a localized emergency force into a federal hammer, so to speak. And basically, he's smashing its way into Democratic run cities. And his next city coming from DC is Chicago, and more likely Baltimore and Oakland and New York and Los Angeles. And these aren't deployments anymore. These are, in my opinion, are takeovers. Now, I guess the question that most people will have, are they good takeovers? Are they bad takeovers? Is this is needed? What has been reluctant that a lot of Democratic mayors, a lot of Democratic governors have been very reluctant in the support of the black community. And I've been watching videos of people putting together of all the senseless crime that are committed by black Americans. And by painting this very broad picture of some of the most heinous crimes, we're talking about murder, we're talking about theft, larceny. People have put again together a lot of the reckless things that black Americans have done, and this only represents 1 to 2% of our population, no less. But again, the more exploitation that you have, and you continue to prop these things up from these really small enclaves of either gang activity or groups, make it seem that all black Americans are dealing in some sort of criminality or lawlessness, and which this isn't really that true. Now, we can do the same thing in white America, Asian America. Now, certain demographics of people commit certain particular crimes according to their environment, according to their needs and wants. So again, this is giving reasoning, not excuses, because I know a lot of people in the comment section, even in the chat here, may say these are excuses, but these are reason. I think this is the reason why I never really took a stance of being a Democrat. I never really took a stance on being a Republican, because President Trump is out here stating that the Republican Party is the party of no crime. And I want to show you this because a lot of this evening's broadcast is going to be based upon a lot of reactions that we see. And I think it's imperative to point out how these two political parties really play with the American people. So let's first hear what the president has to say here.
I think so. I think that crime is going to be a big thing. And we are the party, the Republicans are the party that wants to stop crime. We're against crime. The Democrats like crime. I don't know why. I mean, we talk about common sense. I think I got elected on talking about common sense, the border. We have to have a wall. We don't want transgender for everybody. We don't, as I said before, we don't want to have men playing in women's sports. I mean, you see the difference. Weightlifting. Take a look at weightlifting. Take a look at long distance running, where a run.
And so far, I can't disagree with the president. I don't think anybody wants, well, any sensible people will want men to be playing in women's sports in any capacity. We also wanted walls. Again, I've been to over 40 countries in the world, and a lot of these countries either have natural mountains or valleys, or they have some sort of natural barrier that prevents people just to walking in their countries. And these other countries have built borders so people can't even enter their country. And these are some of the poorest countries in the world. These are third world countries and second world countries, so to speak. So again, I agree with the president with these sentiments.
Runner came in 5 hours and 14 minutes ahead of another runner, both champions. One male, one female. It's not fair. It's demeaning to women. It's so bad. But they have another one, and I think this is the beauty of them all: crime. They're against crime prevention. You can't do that. You can't do that. And I think to myself, I say, is there some game? They're smart people. Is there anybody that can cheat like that in elections is smart? Okay.
In my opinion, all of this is a game. And the American citizens, especially Black American citizens, are the pawns. We're not even the rooks. We're not the bishops. We're the pawns being used. Because by using National Guard under federal authority, Trump sidesteps local leadership, totally bypassing any governor, bypassing any mayors. And I understand what some of you may state. Then why in the hell didn't these governors, didn't these mayors use the same powers of the National Guard and or hiring, bringing law enforcement out of retirement to subside, to decrease, to diminish the amount of crime in a lot of these Democratic ran cities? Now, granted, there's a lot of crime in Republican ran cities as well, as I pointed out, Memphis, Tennessee, to be one of them. But the president tracks back to the Insurrection Act of 1807, a law that's giving the president sweeping powers to send troops into states without the governor's consent, under the guise of quelling domestic unrest, under the guise of decreasing crime. Now, Lyndon B. Johnson used it during the 1968 riots. And believe it or not, George H. Bush used it in Los Angeles after the Rodney King riots. So Trump, he's dragging it out like a sword cut through every blue stronghold he sees as vulnerable. He's not doing this in red states. This is not bipartisan, by the way. And if any of you think, regardless if you lean right or you lean left or you're in the middle, whatever which way you believe and or contribute your vote to, majority of the time, whether it be Republican or Democrat, this is not bipartisanship. This is the takeover of Donald Trump, in my opinion. And again, I haven't stated if this is a good thing or a bad thing. So stay tuned, ladies and gentlemen. Don't turn off your YouTube channel just yet, because I want to know, how did we get here? The root of these issues in these cities didn't start with Trump. The reason why I have a personal interest in this, because I was born and raised in Washington, D.C. And there was a lot of crime then. During my tenure of living in Washington, D.C., I believe that we were statistically the murder capital of the United States of America. And I don't know the population at that time, ladies and gentlemen, but right now, D.C. is only 700,000 people. How we're killing more people and being closer per capita than any other city and or state. So believe it or not to point this all on the Democrats, but a lot of blame goes to them. And in my opinion, in most regards, it started with Democratic neglect. Because for decades, Black communities have been the reliable vote, the voting bloc for the Democrats. Yet when the checks got cut, when the resources got divided, when the promises turned to policies, Black cities were handed crumbs while billions flowed to corporate subsidiaries, war budgets, and yes, illegal immigrant aid programs. Where are those aid programs in the Black cities? So now we have total unrest in all of these Black cities. The lack of opportunities, the lack of resources, the lack of support, the lack of mental health support. Yes, a lot of blame goes to the Democrat. You know why? Because the Black community rendered their aid, rendered their vote. Get your booties to the polls, they told us. And we did exactly that. But what did we get for our vote? We got massive amount of illegal immigrants inside of our country, 11 million, and who knows the exact number. But I want you guys to really think about this. Whether you claim to be a Democrat, Republican, or you just trying to figure out what in the hell is going on in America. Militarization and federalization of our country is happening right now. See, on the right, it used to be states and cities. That is why they call us the United States of America. But now we just have federal power. And it's a total takeover of the United States of America. That is where we are right now. And I'm going to tell you why the Democrats continue to lose. And believe it or not, a lot of people may think that Black Americans are going to come out in droves and vote for the Democrats. But as I told you guys, roughly 45% of Black Americans are in the middle class. They may be in the lower part of the middle class, but no less they are in the middle class. That means that we're going out, working our jobs, paying our bills, doing what is expected as an American citizen. We're trying to live our lives. But then we cannot be ignorant. We cannot be blinded by the crime that we have in some of our cities. Again, this goes to the neglect of not only the Democratic Party, but of the Republican Party, because they could have handled this as well. When the angle that they're handling this, in my opinion, is at the back end, not the front end. Because the front end is basically rendering federal aid and support, and see how that jives within the community of providing resources that was taken away from Black Americans, and how that can further diminish the crime. And don't get me wrong, and the reason why I say it goes back and forth, because President Trump could have done this, and he can do this, instead of federalizing the troops. Because when you federalize the troops, you still have to pay these National Guards. You still have to pay the states. So money is going to be spent. Your tax dollars are still going to be spent. But why not support these areas where these quote unquote high crimes, rather than militarize them? You're creating police states. Now I'm back on the Democrats. Why didn't the Democrats do that? Because Mayor Johnson, he has been forking out millions and billions of dollars to illegal immigrants. So we're going to look at some of this interview right here. He says some of the most idiotic, stupid things I've ever heard a mayor say in my life. But he's going to say it very eloquently, no less. Let's listen in on this foolishness.
Appreciate it. I don't have to tell you about the generations old problem of gun violence on the streets of Chicago. You are making some headway there just in the last couple of years. But what is your response to President Trump as he floats the idea of sending the National Guard into Chicago?
Well, good morning. First of all, a military occupation of the city of Chicago would not only be illegal, but unconstitutional and costly. The city of Chicago is not requesting that federal troops come and occupy our city. In fact, I have not heard any mayor across this country call for American troops to come and occupy our cities. Look, we're working hard every single day to drive violence down in the city of Chicago. Since I've been in office, there's been a precipitous decline in violent crime in every single category. Just this year alone, we have a 32% reduction in homicides, almost 40% reduction in shootings and shooting victims. Robberies are down nearly 35%. Carjackings are down nearly 50%. We're moving in the right direction because we're making critical investments. If this president was actually serious about driving violence down in the city of Chicago and American cities across this country, he would work with mayors to make sure that we have the necessary investments to continue to do the work that we have been doing.
Well, you've led me to my next question, Mr. Mayor, which is, if not for these troops coming into Chicago, what would a productive relationship with the Trump administration look like? If they were serious about fighting crime in the streets of Chicago, what could they offer you that would be helpful?
Yeah, it's an excellent question. First of all, he could start by restoring the over $800 million that was taken away from violence prevention efforts back in April. Look,
that money was reallocated, family, to illegal immigrants. No, we already know what you do with federal funds, Mayor Johnson. See, stop trying to deflect. Now, to your point, there's a lot of things that President Trump can do with federal aid, but releasing those $800 million to the city of Chicago, we've already seen the actions you have with millions of dollars. You didn't invest in the communities because, again, in order to really decrease crime, you have to attack it at its root. Again, what President Trump is doing is a temporary fix. You're not going to have these National Guard troops on ground in Chicago, on ground in Baltimore, on ground in LA, on ground in Oakland for the next 4 or 5 years or to the end of your presidency. I doubt that very seriously. So this is basically a temporary fix on a very major problem. And the problem, some people will argue that, oh, it starts in the home. There's no fathers in the home. You have all these YNs out here, and there's no fathers in the home. No. Cities like Chicago, by the way of Mayor Johnson, have taken away resources from the Black community and given it to illegal immigrants. I'm not blaming this on illegal immigrants. This is just a fact. And when those brothers and sisters were on ground stating that if you don't do X, Y, and Z, they're going to vote for President Trump. And they have.
First became mayor of the city of Chicago, I made multiple requests to the previous administration to invest in violence prevention. That request remains. But these are also requests that I know that are being made in Baltimore by Brandon Scott, who's doing an incredible job. Barbara Lee in Oakland, who's doing an amazing job. Karen Bass in Los Angeles. Many mayors across this country. Randall Woodfin in
Okay, now the other mayors I can't speak to, but Karen Bass has been giving millions of dollars to the immigrant community. So again, I don't trust none of these politicians. They sway whichever way that they sound, you know, I guess will to their base and to their constituents of which way they should go. But again, 50% of what he's saying is truth. The other 50% are lies.
Birmingham, Alabama, you are seeing declines that we have not seen in a generation. In fact, just the month of April this year, 2025, it was the safest April since 1962. Our work is working. This president and the federal government has a responsibility to ensure that cities have the resources that they need in order to continue to drive violence down across the led organizations that are spending time on the ground in the neighborhoods, working to squash.
Considered to be violence prevention programs.
Million be used for?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we have been working with community violence intervention workers, or CVI. These are community-led organizations that are spending time on the ground in the neighborhoods, working to squash conflict, to prevent retaliation from occurring. Look, I live on the west side of Chicago. It's the Austin neighborhood, one of the most dynamic communities in the entire city, but it has been mired in disinvestment. I'm likely the first mayor in the history of Chicago to wake up in one of the most difficult, challenging communities. And that's why not only are we investing in CVI, or our community violence intervention workers, we're also investing in youth employment. This summer alone, we hired 31,119 young people. And in the neighborhoods where youth employment was the highest, we saw the most significant decline in violence. He also can help.
And that is one of the solutions right there. By providing opportunities for young people, because again, the term that they're using now with a lot of people who are Black and committing crimes, they're labeling them as YNs. And this is one of the tactics that Mayor and Barry out of Washington, D.C. back in the early 90s used to use. He started the D.C. Summer Work Program for youth. I am a product of the Mayor and Barry Summer Youth Program at Washington, D.C. It had my, and to this day, I'm good with computers. I built the computer I'm actually working on right now. This is my second computer that I built in this particular house, but I built probably about 5 or 6 computers in my lifetime. But that is a product of great programs that got youth off the street. And believe me, I probably would have been a product of my environment, okay, because I didn't have a father in the home, no less. My mother was a single mother who was working, but these programs not only provided trade skills, they provided experience in working in different industries and fields, but it also took us off the street during the summertime and actually worked for every dollar that we have. It gave us a sense of pride and motivation to go out and do the right thing. So again, some of the things that he's done, I'm not stating that Mayor Johnson has done all things bad, because it's very easy to get emotional when you do not agree with someone. Okay, he could have done a lot more than what he has done. And one of the things that I believe that the Black community will not forgive him of giving millions of dollars to illegal immigrants and upseating and evacuating and vacating community centers that Black youth was going to. And they were saying, you didn't do that in the white part of the town. You didn't do that in the Asian part of the town. You did it in the Black part of the town. So you are part of the system of white supremacy, adhering to your white paymasters and doing their bidding because, again, you are dividing, you are decreasing the amount of resources that Black people really don't have in the damn first place. But you got millions of dollars for people who are not even citizens of this country. And no less, you back them. You argue the point. So again,
support mental and behavioral health care services. I've reopened the 3 mental health clinics. We've expanded mental health crises workers all over the city so that when mental health crises occurs, a police officer doesn't have to show up to that scene, but we have a trained professional to be able to address these crises. The other thing that he can help us with is the federal government can help us with. I've revamped the entire detectives bureau within the city of Chicago, and now we have a clearance rate almost 77%. One of the deterrents of crime is to actually solve it, to bring closure, to bring justice. These are just a few examples that I know mayors across the country are calling for. This president and the federal government has literally declared war on poor people. I remember a time when presidents declared war on poverty. The federal government has a moral responsibility to do unto the least of these. And that's what we're doing in the city of Chicago.
So let me ask you, Mr. Mayor, those all sound like great programs.
now this is where Mayor Johnson of Chicago lost me. And if you guys listen closely, then you'll understand exactly what I'm referring to.
I'm curious, would you also like to get federal funding to help put 5,000 more cops on the street in Chicago? Would that help drive down crime?
Well, look, policing by itself is not the full strategy.
No, I understand that. You've talked about the other things you want, and I said those are good and important programs, but I'm asking also, would 5,000 more police officers on the street in Chicago be helpful to go along with all of those social programs that a lot of cities are engaging in and having success with?
Well, look, here's the best way I can put it, Joe, is that in the 90s when I was in high school, we had 3,000 more police officers and we had 900 people being murdered every single year in Chicago. It's just not policing alone. Of course, we want more detectives.
I know it's not policing alone, but I know it's not policing alone. You've told me everything else you want. I'm curious, and this does come down to an ideological difference between people. Do you believe that the streets of Chicago would be safe?
I don't know if you guys caught it, but the newscaster prevented himself from saying black versus white. That's why he was really trying to find his word. He wasn't trying to make this race-based. But you and I know, and anybody watching, you guys understand that Chicago and the crime they're referring to is happening, as they're stating, majority in black areas, just as well as DC, just as well as Baltimore, so on and so forth. But again, I want you guys listening in on this key point here.
If there were more uniformed police officers on the streets of Chicago?
I believe the city of Chicago and cities across America would be safer if we actually had, affordable housing. Look,
okay,
I'm not saying that
that's not the question I asked. My question is, and I just need a yes or a no, do you believe the streets of Chicago would be safer if you got all of those other extraordinary programs put back into place, which do have a history of being successful, if that's complemented by having 5,000 more cops on the streets of Chicago?
I don't believe that we should narrow it down to just police officers, Joe, is what I'm saying. That is an antiquated approach. I'm saying we've invested in.
So this is the problem, ladies and gentlemen. So the newscaster here, I don't know his name, but he was basically stating all the programs, all the resources that you've already stated, all those were in place. Yes or no, with 5,000 more police officers on the street, will it make Chicago safer? Is that better for your city? And he's talking about, that's an antiquated approach, meaning that you're trying to lump everything in together. No, he's not doing that. He's already stated, you already got these things in place. And you're talking about affordable housing? Man, shut the hell up. See, this is, I didn't want to disrespect the guy, but this is getting stupid. I really thought that black people, we're really straight up and honest and very this very truthful, and we're straight shooters when it comes to things, except for these Democratic shills. These Democratic shills, they dance around. These politicians, they pounce around. They don't get to the point. This answer the question, Mayor Johnson. Because if you would ask me, if you had all of these resources in place, if you had all these programs to be activated, would you with an additional 5,000 police officers on the street of Chicago, would it make it safer? I would have to incline to say yes, because you know what? Now, you may not agree with this, family, because I know what traditionally what police have done and the interactions that they have with low income, as well as it really doesn't matter your class or your status, but this interaction with black people. And this is why I push people. If you do not like law enforcement, or you are anti-police, then have your children, have your friends and family, have yourself to join the police. The only way we can change police if we become the police. And I don't mean to become the police who brutalize citizens. I'm not talking about those police officers. But we can't keep crying about the police, about, oh, they need to revamp, they need to reconstruct. No, we need to join the police. If we want black people to police black people, then we need to become the police. We know how our people interact. White people who live across town, Asian people who live across town, Hispanics that live across town that don't live in our neighborhoods and our areas do not understand how we communicate. Do not stand there a young man with his pants drooping down with dreads is walking down the street that he's not committing a crime. Now, you would think that the police would know who's committing a crime or not, but a lot of times our people get harassed by police. So on one hand, 5,000 more police officers will cause more collisions, more encounters, and possibly increase the brutality of police on those people. But again, this is a very sensitive topic because we can't hate the police and not want to become the police. And Mayor Johnson, 5,000 more police officers on the street. If we, okay, again, this is for an example. That would make the streets of Chicago a lot safer, in my opinion, because they would just spawn up duty station. They would have police booths on the street to decrease the amount of crime. And see, here's another thing. I can have this guy to go on and on and on. I'm not going to do that. This is what I'm going to do. Because I think the way that we really get to the nooks and cranny of this, let me see if I can pop this up. Give me 1 second. Give me 1 second here. Because I really want to drive this point home. Earlier, I was stating that we really need to reach out to citizens of Chicago. We need to really reach out to citizens in Chicago and hear what they're saying. So here's a young lady, and she's speaking on it. Let's listen in on this.
My first reaction was that this is a good thing. I think that the governor as well as the mayor should be on board with it just so we can get a bit more of security in Chicago the way that we need.
The crime has dropped since 2024. Do you feel like the city feels safer?
No, not at all. No, especially with the police being defunded. My first reaction was that this is a good thing. I think that the governor as well as the mayor should be on board with it just so we can get a bit more of security in Chicago the way that we need.
The crime has dropped since 2024. Do you feel like the city feels safer?
No, not at all. No, especially with the police being defunded. My first.
So again, that is a citizen of Chicago. I do not know her background. I don't know if she's originally from America or she's from another country. I looked at her last name, Haig or Hack or whatever it may be. But again, there have been a lot of accounts of citizens coming out saying that Chicago is not safe. Yeah, you stated on your statistical sheets that crime has decreased by 30%, but it's still dangerous to live in Chicago. And so now President Trump is federalizing and militarizing Chicago. And they're next. And Mayor Johnson stated that this is unconstitutional. No, it isn't. He's using the Insurrection Act of 1807. And there's clauses in there that he can utilize to really make a power play and take over the entire city of Chicago. Don't you want safer streets? He even stated that there has been black citizens, mostly black women, that have come out and they said, President Trump, can you come to Chicago and do some of the same things that you've been doing? And believe me when I tell you this, the Democrats had every opportunity to do them themselves that may not endanger the lives of black Americans in those cities. But you took the money away from these environments, you took the money away from these communities, and you've given it to illegal immigrants. And for decades, black Americans have been voting for Democrats and receiving nothing in return. But you provided a lot of programs for illegal immigrants, did you not? So instead of investing in neighborhoods screaming, because everybody's talking about education, fathers in the home, education, opportunities. Yes, that's right. But they've been demanding, they've been screaming, they've been begging for better schools, safer streets, jobs with dignity. And Democrats poured billions into sanctuary protection. And if you look at the numbers, New York City allocated over $4 billion in 1 year to housing and aid for illegal immigrants. While the majority of black schools in the Bronx can't afford updated textbooks, things are just falling apart. The schools, some of the schools in DC, now I don't know if they renovated them, but they were falling apart. Chicago, where crime rates have exploded into their account. And I was trying to find a clip here, ladies and gentlemen, because supposedly they found information that the statistics of the crimes dropping is fraudulent. I don't know who to believe, but I'll believe the citizens that are on the ground who's living in Chicago, who's living in Baltimore, who's living in DC each and every day. Now you have these sanctuary cities, and do not forget, Governor Abbott of Texas. He bussed, he flew, he shipped a lot of these illegal immigrants to all these sanctuary cities. He sent them to Chicago. He sent them to New York. He's like, oh, you're a sanctuary city? So they're coming illegally through the border and you don't support border wall. So we're going to send you these illegal immigrants. And what did Mayor Johnson of Chicago do? What did the mayor in New York do? What do all these mayors do? They open up their doors with open arms, and they provided resources and houses and jobs, work permits, and gave them temporary protection status. They rerouted millions of illegal immigrants into housing, leaving South and West Side black neighborhoods to fend for themselves. Even in California, he was talking about Karen Bass. He was talking about Mayor Karen Bass of LA. They have one of the largest black homeless populations in America. And she spent more to shelter illegal immigrants than to provide permanent housing for his native-born black citizens. The Democratic failure is not just policy, it's priorities. And they've been making everybody else their priorities. The reason why I said the blame goes on both political parties, but I blame the Democrats more because we are the ones who put them in place. And I don't mean me, I mean the black so-called community. We've been fooled, hoodwinked, tricked, and manipulated by the Democratic Party for far too long. So I don't care what none of these Republicans are doing. But if we're going to keep going out here beating feet and giving them our vote because, oh, we're tired of Republicans, we're tired of this, we're tired of that, our vote had meant nothing to the Democrats in order for them to get power and undermine us and put other people in our place. Now, at one point in time, it was something called the silent replacement theory or mission that the Democrats have been doing. They have been replacing black Americans in the workplace. They've been replacing black Americans in neighborhoods. They've been replacing black Americans being entrepreneurs with illegal and legal immigrants, providing grants and subsidies. They're using the same programs for American citizens that you and I are supposed to benefit from. TAF, CHIP, all of these, EBT, all of these things that's supposed to be a subsidy program to help people who are low impoverished, who cannot, again, make their bills. Section 8 housing. They're going to eradicate Section 8 housing, ladies and gentlemen, because illegal immigrants have been using that as well. And the statistics that both sides show, one showing that the numbers that they're showing out of a lot of these, so-called Democratic black blue cities, that these statistics have been massaged to look like progress. Unemployment rates drop glowing numbers, but when you cut through the Bureau of Labor statistics and you kind of cut through all of that fudge, black unemployment is still nearly double the national average. Education, don't have it. Oh yeah, black women are going at a alarming rate. They're getting degrees. But again, if we're talking about the black youth, if we're talking about the black people that live in these neighborhoods, they strip these neighborhoods of funding and resources and programs. In one regard, they brag about the graduation rates, but they omit the functional literacy crisis in inner city schools. It's kind of like the Republicans and Democrats are playing tennis, and black Americans is the tennis ball. And crime. Instead of tackling root causes with long-term investment, as Mayor Johnson was stating, these investments of the $800 million that the Republican Party took away from Chicago, I know why they took it away. I would have took it away too. You're giving it to illegal immigrants. Because once we give you the money, you can divide and you can allocate money into different areas. And we would need some sort of oversight. Oh, well, I had to use it on this. You'll make all type of excuses. So they just took the money away from you. Because this is basically Democrats playing politics. And President Trump, they use the cashless bail movement as reform optics while ignoring the desperation behind the statistics. That's the vacuum that Trump marched into. See, Trump, and again, I'm very neutral on these politicians, Republicans and Democrats, because in my opinion, he's not pulling these things out of thin air. He's using laws already on the books. As I told you, he's using the Insurrection Act of 1807 that allows him to bypass governors and deploy federal troops anywhere. And he's just going to use your National Guard troops. He's just going to federalize them and use them right in place. He's also going to use the Stanford Act of 1988. That normally they use the Stanford Act normally for disasters, but if you reinterpret it broadly to justify federal resources in emergency zones, he will label Chicago as an emergency zone and use the Stanford Act as well. Also, the executive order on law and order, because Trump re-weaponized Nixon's law and order rhetoric into federal executive muscle. And he's created a narrative where every Democratic city becomes a failed state that requires his intervention, as he is doing. We already know what President Trump is doing. We already know what he's doing, family. There's no such thing as the United States of America. This is federal power. This is the takeover of the United States of America in the eyes of the Trump administration. You don't have to agree, just see what's going on. And some of you may say, well, is it really that bad? I just know the relationship that Black Americans have with the police, regardless if we're committing a crime or not. We have many unarmed, innocent Black people to be harmed and killed by the police. And the only thing I think that will be helpful, especially like it was in DC, a lot of the National Guard in DC are Black Americans. I would like to believe a lot of the National Guard in Illinois, I would like to believe it's probably split. But again, DC is 43% Black. I don't know the population of Black people in Illinois because it's a state, not just the city of Chicago. A lot of times people like to allude to that. But Donald Trump, by combining executive power with fear politics, He is essentially federalizing the United States city by city, crisis by crisis, and he's using the crime to do it. And guess what, ladies and gentlemen? The crime does exist. The crime does exist. And because Democrats opened the lane with their negligence, and nobody seems able to slam the brakes on this. And here's the chilling reality of it all. Congress is split because courts are political and governors don't have the manpower to resist the guard. Because once federal troops are on the streets in an area near you, it's checkmate. They've already taken over. It's Supreme Court broad difference to executive emergency powers that gives Trump's legal cover. Now, granted, me being a former military member of 20 years, these troops are trained for warfare. They're not trained for domestic security. Now, in some regards, they are trained for riots, but this is patrolling, ladies and gentlemen. And if anyone gets a wild hair of trying to ambush a National Guard member, to get into altercation with a National Guard member who have been trained in the fine arts of marksmanship, who has been trained in the fine arts of hand-to-hand combat, and with his brethren and sisters beside him, all hell will break loose in these cities. I pray that no one is going to be prompting and antagonizing any of the National Guard, because he's already allowed National Guard to have firearms by their side. And I would like to believe they're locked and loaded. Now, in my opinion, this is a total media circus. But no less, this gives President Trump's political momentum, and the fractured Democratic message gives him no meaning opposition. They should not have Mary Johnson out here talking about, I believe opportunity to buy housing would decrease crime in Chicago. You can't buy a house if you don't have the money. What are you talking about? As I state, in order to cut this problem off, again, these are just the branches of both political parties' negligence on Black communities. This is where people were talking about systematic oppression. Some of you were like, oh, no, it's about no fathers in the home. It's about Shaniqua twerking on police and cop cars. It's about Black people being lazy, all these white supremacist ideology. But no, I want you to think about, and I know his people hate to go back in history, but from the 1930s until today, what has occurred to Black Americans? What has occurred in Black communities? The constant stripping away of opportunities, the constant stripping away of resources. We already know where there is a lack of resources, there is increased crime. This is the American experiment. Where you think Nazi Germany got the ghetto from? They got it from America. They took a group of people and made sure that the only types of jobs they can get are low waged. They made schools very expensive for only certain demographics of people in order to go to those schools. And then you go to Harvard, you go to Yale, you go to Brown, you go to Stanford. A lot of the people that go to those schools, believe it or not, they're not going there because they're straight A students. They're not going there because they got a perfect score in the SAT or the ACT. No, majority of the students that go to these schools are going because of legacy programs. So they could be B and C students just like you in Chicago, like you in DC, and receiving the same education, but because they had people to go before them to those schools, they can now get in. Because in theory, Trump federalization could bring immediate order to crime-ravaged cities like Chicago, like DC, like Oakland, like LA, like New York, and the list goes on and on. Black neighborhoods that are plagued by violence may see temporary relief from federal muscle. It may even spotlight the failures of local leadership. But here's the bad of it all. Federal militarization is not liberation. It's not freedom. It's occupation. We might as well just, in some regards, be sent to Gaza. The only difference is that, they're not going to be bombing us. I would hope not. Troops don't come with jobs. Troops don't come with schools or economic pipelines. They come with checkpoints. They showed a video clip of some federal officers in DC. I think it was around 8 or 9 o'clock at night. And I swear the entire neighborhood was outside. And majority of the people that were outside were young people. And I was just like, there's no crime for them being outside. But the police, in my opinion, was harassing them. Again, there's no crime for you hanging out. I know what you're going to say. Well, they were being productive. They would have been in getting their clothes ready for school the next day. They would have been doing their homework. They probably been watching a show. They probably would eat dinner. Why are they just hanging out, running around, acting wild and acting crazy? Because the lack thereof. When you go to the suburbs and you go to some of these very affluent neighborhoods, what are they doing? Oh, they're playing basketball, they're playing baseball, they're playing football, they're playing soccer, they're going to coding school, they have all these different clubs. And some of these things are really low cost or they're free. Why is there no YMCAs in the Black neighborhood? I'm just asking for a friend. Why is there no YMCAs? Not that I know of. It might be some. But as I was stating, troops don't come with resources and support for Black communities. They come with checkpoints. They come with surveillance and a reminder that Black communities are seen as security threats instead of citizens to be empowered. It sets the precedent that every problem in America will be solved with boots and guns and not books and grants. And see, whatever political party that you lean to, I already know some of the things you're going to say. You would just like to blame what you see because it seems that no one is a critical thinker. No one does the research. No one goes back in history to see how things matriculated throughout the course of time. Black people just out of slavery, criminals, out of slavery, murderers, out of slavery, theft, larceny, out of slavery, wreaking havoc on the neighborhood. No, there has been a progression of the decline of Black America, and we can't just blame it on social media. This has been politically charged. And damn right, I'm going to blame 70 to 85% on the freaking Democrats. Because you knew the issues and you know the issues of the Black community. And when we had people who really cared about the Black community, and I'll reference Marion Barry of DC during his tenure, even though he got incarcerated for doing cocaine, but then he became the mayor the second time, even after he got charged with doing cocaine, and he's still done some of the best programs that DC has ever seen. When Marion Barry went away, so did the programs because the next mayor did not support it, even though crime was down tremendously. So I don't want to hear nothing for no Democratic shills about, oh, they're just going to brutalize the Black community. Yeah, that may be possible. Because if this is left unchecked, Trump is going to rewrite the very balance of American federalism. Total takeover. The states will lose their sovereignty. Local mayors become figureheads that is going to be in place. And for foundational Black Americans, the Democratic betrayal becomes even more permanent because they have abandoned their strongest base and handed Trump the excuse to march in as the fixer. This didn't happen overnight, by the way. Oh, it happened because we didn't vote in Kamala Harris. Yeah, we may not have troops on the ground, but we'll be in the same economic position, if not worse. Because as I told you, a lot of these so-called sanctuary cities, who they give the money to. And I'm not blaming the illegal immigrants, because if I was over in one of those countries and there was a lack of opportunities, I'll be trying to sneak in America too. I would keep my head down. I will hide out. I'll tell them that I work hard. And I will receive any resource and funding from a Democratic Party that will soon make me a citizen and then think I will vote for them. This happened because Democrats traded loyalty for negligence. And Trump has weaponized the very vacuum with laws that have existed for centuries. These laws are still in place. The only thing Donald Trump is using them. And unfortunately, black cities are the battlefield. The federalization that he's using is the strategy. And unless Democrats radically recenter on the communities that carry them for 60 plus years, this will not just be Trump's America. This will be Trump's America forever. Midterms 2026. You can miss me with all of that, folks. You can miss me with that. Can we create a 50-state term of First Amendment auditors for FBA? I really don't know. That's a good question, though. We saw what happened when black people, when black people police black people in Memphis. Okay, so you're taking one occurrence of police brutality with, I believe it was between 3 and 5 black police officers that they brutalized. A black young man, I believe they put him out of his car. I forgot, the story is kind of fuzzy, but I know what story you're referring to. But that's one instance. You're going to have that, unfortunately, when people get pumped up on power and you disrespect them. You're going to have that. So here's the question, and people hate when I ask these questions in this regard. Would I rather be brutalized and beaten to death by a white cop, or beaten and brutalized to death by a black cop? I'd rather not be beaten and brutalized. But again, this is my conjecture. We will have a better outcome with black law enforcement that are policing black neighborhoods than we would the other, because those statistics show as well. You get what I'm, because here's the thing. Whether it be white on white crime, Asian on Asian crime, Hispanic on Hispanic crime, most crime occurs to groups of demographics that live by each other. They're called proximity crimes. People commit crimes within their environments, in their communities. You don't have white police officers killing white people committing crime indiscriminately because they can relate to them. This is psychological. This may go over some people's head. It's psychological. I've even seen on account where a police officer is going back and forth with white gentlemen fighting or being pushed. They didn't pull out the gun. Some of them pull out their tasers, but soon as we get into maybe a verbal disagreement or debate, you see guns being pulled. You see guns being drawn. So it's a different dynamic. But again, I understand your question. Sharon Steele says, thank you. I appreciate that, sister. Bonnie states, didn't Brandon give affordable housing to illegal? Thank you very much. And that is one of the points that I'm making. Nonsense. White man supremacy is the black man's supremacy. The president is fixing the place up for black and white people. If something isn't done, the problem will only get worse. Now, Bert, I can't say you're all the way wrong. I can't say you're all the way wrong, but I'll tell you this. Some of the neighborhoods in DC, the reason why the population of DC, of black resident, has dropped significantly is because gentrification basically renovated a lot of the black neighborhoods in DC. They renovated them. They increased the amount that they were, knowing that the majority of people that were living in those areas cannot afford it. So they then had to be pushed in the outskirts of the city, or they had to be moved into DC and Virginia. Could this be a pathway of criminal gentrification? I don't know if that could be a term, but I look at Gaza. It makes me look at Gaza no less. I saw a special, and I want to pop this up. If you guys can bear with me, I want to look at this video clip that I saw on Gaza, because we all thought that Gaza had been bombing, and this is the IDF, Israeli Defense Force, was going after the Hamas terrorist fighters, that the buildings were being destroyed because of the bombing and raiding of the IDF. Well, I saw a video clip that was very intriguing, or someone on ground showing that Israel has been decimating Gaza systematically with bombs. Basically, you know how you demo a building, you set charges in certain places, you put them on the load-bearing beam and this, that, and the other, and then you destroy it. That's what they've been doing to Gaza. Why would you do that? Why would you do that? You would do that because you're trying to rebuild the city in the way that you would want Israel to look. Now, I'm trying to find this very quickly. Okay, this is on the go here live. So again, bear with me, because again, this really opened my eyes, because I knew some remnants of these things were occurring, but not at this level. Okay, not at this level. I'm really trying to find this out. Give me 1 second as I look through this. This is gonna shock you guys, because when I saw it, it kind of just, man, it made me throw my hands up, because I knew that something foul was going on in Gaza, but not at this point. Here we go, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for staying with me here. Here's what I was referring to.
How much of Gaza has Israel destroyed? The Israel Defense Forces have now started their latest offensive on Gaza City. For Palestinians there and across the Strip, the land is now almost entirely uninhabitable. Almost all of Gaza is either controlled by the Israeli military or subject to its evacuation warnings. Most of the remaining population now lives within this small area. Much of Gaza has been flattened. Satellite imagery reveals the scale of the destruction. A UN agency identified damage to more than 190,000 buildings. That's 70% of Gaza's pre-war structures. This destruction has left vast amounts of rubble across Gaza, an estimated 53.5 million tons. The World Bank reckons all this translates to roughly 300,000 homes damaged or destroyed. It's 62% of Gaza's total. The damage to Gaza isn't only from Israeli airstrikes. Israeli forces have used demolitions and bulldozers to destroy residential areas. The IDF has said it only destroys buildings out of military necessity in its fight against Hamas. But there is ample evidence to suggest otherwise. One objective appears to be to create a military buffer zone along Gaza's border.
All right, I think you guys get my drift when it comes to that. Why did I point that out? Because it reminds me of Tulsa when America first bombed itself, and that was the Black community. Now, will America bomb Chicago? Would America bomb DC? Would America bomb? I don't believe so. But we're looking at some of the first steps of President Trump's federal takeover. I won't say the first steps. This is just in a matter of steps he's already taken of the takeover of not only the nation's capital, but a lot of the blue ran cities. Because again, as I stated, there are Republican states that have high crime as well. And you hear nothing from the sort of President Trump and the Trump administration. This is why I want people, American citizens, especially Black Americans, to stop falling for the tricks of the Democrats. They have you to believe that all Republicans are racist and that the Democrats are speaking up, because they try to pull at your heartstrings. Oh, look how bad Trump is. He's he's using the Constitution. He's using the Insurrection Act. He's stretching the laws on the books. Why is he doing this? Because for decades, Black Americans have been voting Democrat and receiving nothing in return. And when the Democratic Party got exposed of supporting illegal immigrants with millions of dollars, giving them federal money as well, and Mayor Johnson talking about make affordable housing would decrease violence in Chicago. If you can't afford, what does affordable housing mean? Just because you have a house don't mean you're not going to commit crime. Can you have a house and be broke? Yes, you can. Can you have a house and still commit crime? Yes, you can. So I don't know what Mayor Johnson was talking about, but I know a young lady came out and stated that they said, oh, the crime rates in Chicago has dropped. And I want to point this out just one more time for you guys that is tuning in to see this. Listen to this.
My first reaction was that this is a good thing. I think that the governor as well as the mayor should be on board with it just so we can get a bit more of security in Chicago the way that we need.
The crime has dropped since 2024. Do you feel like the city feels safer?
No, not at all. No, especially with the police being defunded. My first reaction.
And see, here's the thing behind that. I've never called for the defunding of police. I don't know why anyone in their right mind will call for the defunding of police if you're a law-abiding citizen and you don't want crime to rise in your community, in your neighborhood, in your state, and also in your city. I don't know why nobody in the hell would want that. Now, I did point out this sister here because I was trying to find out if she's a foundational Black American because her last name is Arabic. Supposedly, this last name is one of the 99 names of God in Islam. But that doesn't mean anything. A lot of people change their name. But I just wanted to point that out, okay? Just in case. But she may live in the neighborhood. And she stated that Chicago is not safe. Especially where she lives. So, as I stated before, I wanted to hear the residents of Chicago who this will affect. And they're still stating that Chicago is not safe. And they wanted President Trump to come. President Trump stated, and I don't know if he's lying, he stated that Black people, especially Black women, wanted him to come with the National Guard to subside, to reduce, to decrease, to diminish the amount of crime in Chicago. I don't even know my stance on this. I know what this can turn out to be. I know what this can be, what it could be, federalizing the United States of America. Instead of being the United States of America, it is be the states. No, I don't know. What would you call it? You wouldn't call it the United States of America. You would call it federal America. Because if you can take over every city, and here's the thing. Am I against what President Trump is doing? Not necessarily. But it does make me raise my eyebrow a little. Why aren't you doing this in Republican-ran states who have Republican governors, who have Republican mayors? Because there's still high crime there as well. There are cities and states that are Republican-ran, that have low impoverished areas, that they have higher crime rates amongst Blacks, amongst whites, amongst Hispanics, and all other sorts of people. So why isn't he doing that? So is this political theater? Is he playing towards his base? Is he prompting and geared up for the 2026 midterm elections? I don't know. Hopefully this experiment that we call America works out. Because right now, unfortunately, because Black Americans, without asking and demanding things from the Democratic Party, we just have to sit back and watch.